Joint Chiefs of Staff General Mark Milley responding to explosive allegations that he made calls to China behind President Trump's back. According to a new book, Milley was so concerned that Trump might randomly attack China, he called the communist regime, assuring them he would warn them first. Milley's office did not confirm the details of the call, but did put out a statement today saying, quote, all calls from the chairman to his counterparts, including those reported, are staffed, coordinated, and communicated with the Department of Defense and the interagency. However, the acting defense secretary at the time, Chris Miller, issued a statement to Newsmax refuting Milley, saying in part, quote, as Secretary of Defense, I did not and would not ever authorize such conduct. Nonetheless, Press Secretary Jen Psaki shamelessly defended Milley's alleged actions because, Orange man bad.
It's the obligation of every chairman of the Joint Chiefs to follow constitutional orders to prevent unlawful military action. That's what the president believes. But it's also important to understand the context of when this reporting was happening during, and the fact that the former president was fomenting an insurrection, and there was broad concern from a range of members of his national security team about his behavior and fitness for office.
Joining me to discuss is Florida Congressman and retired Green Beret Michael Waltz. Congressman, thanks so much for joining us this evening.
Good to be with you. Thanks.
So are you surprised there to see the White House defending Milley?
Well, I think we have to get to the bottom of what happened. The allegations are incredibly concerning. They have huge implications for civilian control of the military, which is sacrosanct in any democracy. I am withholding right now, calling for any type of resignation or action. I don't do that based on leaked book excerpts, especially from Bob Woodward, who himself wrote several books about President Trump that had all kinds of misinformation. But we do need to get to the bottom of it. That's why Senator Graham and I have sent a letter today asking questions and getting answers in writing. And we have upcoming hearings where we are going to ask for things under oath and in testimony on exactly what happened.
Well, Congressman, I want to ask you, President Trump did join Newsmax yesterday. He said if this is true, what Woodward wrote about, he says this is treason. Would you agree with that if the report is true?
Well, look, I think if they are true, and I think that's a big if when it comes to the media and the fake news in Washington, D.C. But if they are true, they're very concerning. I want to know, for example, if Chairman Milley was so concerned about President Trump's mental state, did he share his concerns with any other cabinet officers? Did he share and coordinate this call with his Chinese counterpart? Did he inform Secretary Pompeo? Did he inform President Trump's national security advisor, Robert O'Brien, because there were a number of other issues going on with China at the time. And when we're in any type of political transition, we are incredibly vulnerable as a country. The Russians know it, the Chinese know it, the Iranians and North Koreans know it, and of course, terrorists know it. So again, we have a lot to get to the bottom of, but I do want to hear from General Milley himself.
Well, I want you to let's take a look back at what Milley had to say. This was back in 2015 that we found he had to say about China. Let's take a listen.
China's not an enemy, and I think that's important for people to clearly understand. They are going to develop themselves and are developing themselves into a great power. That is not to say, however, that they are an enemy, and it is not to imply nor say that conflict with China is inevitable.
China is not an enemy. Does that influence your assessment at all of this report?
Well, I think that, frankly, it was wishful thinking that a lot of people had, and that has absolutely changed. And I can tell you I've had those conversations with General Milley, and he does view them, as I do, the Chinese Communist Party as the greatest threat this country has ever faced. And thank God President Trump came in 2017, launched a new national security strategy, and shifted our entire national security policy to deal with the threat that the CCP presents us. Look, their Navy is larger than ours now. They've launched more into space last year than the rest of the world combined, including the United States. And listen to Chairman Xi himself, the president of China, who openly talks about replacing the American dream with the China dream. That's not a world that I want my kids or grandkids growing up in. And I'm glad Milley's thinking has evolved. Heck, I'm glad all Americans thinking has evolved. But where we really need to take the next step is when you pick up something in a store and it says made in China, put it down. It needs to say made in America, because it's our money that's feeding our greatest adversary, their military buildup, and their desire to replace the United States as a world leader.
Yeah, indeed. Congressman, so great to have you on this evening. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, thanks so much.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.